Oh, you didn't know? Your ass better call somebody!
The energy revealed. Brooklyn to Queens, reppin' both hoods. Rob and CP, keep it fire misunderstood. Cheer 'em all loud, let the anthem flow. Mets fans unite at the pregame show. From city stand lights to the skyline greens, it's the heartbeat of Queens, the craziest dreams. Rob hype on the mic, CP's the fire spark. Together they ignite. Voices like the park fans dripped in jerseys. Legacy bold, the Metropolitan story forever told. Turnstile spinning, the crowd floods the gates. This is family, no time for debates. Crack of the Batman, the roar never fades. Queens in the blood, it's how champions are made. Cheer 'em all loud, let the anthem flow. Mets fans unite at the pregame show. From city stand lights to the skyline gleams, it's the heartbeat of Queens, the craziest dreams. 7-line swagger, vibes electric and wild. Mets legacy golden since I was a child. Orange crushed skies, let the battle ignite. Ride for the home team till the last fight.
What's up, Mets fans? Welcome back to the Amazing Mets pregame show right here on the channels and on X. And we finally made it, Mets fans. The final 3 games of the season, and we are in Miami. Of course, those games will matter because it's just what the Mets have to deal with and our fans have to deal with when it comes to the New York Mets. 3 games to go. Playoffs on the line, and the Miami Marlins are in our way. Can't wait to talk about it. Chris, how you doing, buddy?
It's come down to this. All the pre-games, post-games, videos in between about the deadline, everything else in between, the off-season videos that we do, it all comes down to this. Whether the Mets make the postseason or not. And, at this point, it's been such a roller coaster season for this team and, for this fan base and for us talking about this team on pretty much an everyday basis. And we'll find out shortly. It's no secret that this Marlins team wants to play spoilers with the pitchers that they have going. They specifically threw Alcantara against this Mets team, and we'll see how tonight goes. Brandon Sproat. There's a lot on Brandon Sproat's plate right now, and this is the biggest start of his career, as we were talking about last night on the post-game show with Nick and myself. And, it's a lot to ask for a rookie to go out there in such a dire, desperate sort of situation in game, 160 at this point. And I don't know, man. We all know what's at stake. This team knows what's at stake. But so do the Marlins, and the Marlins have been a team that has been perpetually a thorn in the Mets' sides. And so you'd like to think that the better team will prevail here, which is clearly the New York Mets. But if history kind of shows itself, then it's going to be tougher than we all imagine. So go out there and play clean baseball. That's the first and foremost thing that this Mets team has to do, especially defensively behind such a young pitcher like Brandon Sproat, is play clean defense. And that's something that we didn't see in the National Series against another inferior team, which led to a series loss. So that's where I start off with, Rob. But we have to talk about the starting lineups. Absolutely am not a fan of Cedric Mullins in this lineup, but I'm sure we'll talk about that here in just a second.
Yeah, and just before we get into the game and stuff like that, I just want to give everybody the clinching scenarios for the New York Mets, because I know there's been a lot of speculation of like, how is this going to happen? What needs to happen for the Mets to make the playoffs? So if the Mets sweep the Marlins, automatic in, doesn't matter. Wonderful. And the Reds are eliminated, D-backs are eliminated, doesn't matter. The Mets go 2-1. The Reds can go 2-1. And automatically the D-backs are eliminated. Doesn't matter how many games they win, they're automatically eliminated because they're already 2 games out. That's scenario number 2. Scenario number 3 is the interesting one. The Mets can go 1-2, and the Cincinnati Reds can go 1-2 or worse, and the Diamondbacks can go 2-1 or worse, and the Mets will make the playoffs. The Mets can go 0-3 and get swept. that's going to probably be the fun part because we all know that might happen. And that would be hilarious how the Mets might sneak in that way. The Reds go 0-3 and the Diamondbacks go 1-2 or worse, and the Mets are in the playoffs. So all those fun scenarios for everybody. Get excited because listen, even though this has been the disappointing season, nobody can say it otherwise. You still would sign up at the end of the year to have a chance to make the playoffs, right? Especially as Met fans, right? There's a ton of expectation. This should have never got to this point. But at the end of the day, as bad as we've been for years and years and years, having a chance to win a playoff spot, and if I think every fan base would sign up for 3 games left, you lead you lead in a playoff spot with 1 game, and you have control over your own destiny. I think every fan base would sign up for that. Obviously when you're watching a game, every pitch, every hit, every inning matters. Everybody would sign up for that, right? That gets you excited, right? It shouldn't be this where we are right now, but we are where we are right now because they've played the way they played. And unfortunately, we have to sit there and watch it either have it happen or have it be a disaster and not make the playoffs. Those scenarios can all happen. And obviously we hope of the positive one, and we'll hopefully see this lovely lineup that I don't like either, but it is what it is at this point. The Marlins clearly, because the Marlins set up their rotation. Everybody's like, oh, they set up their rotation for their best pitchers against the Mets. They were red hot before they lost a couple of games. They were red hot, and they got themselves right back in the mix. So they set it up about a couple of games ago where they still had an opportunity to make the playoffs, and they could have, had that scenario. I don't know if they're still. I haven't checked I think they're officially eliminated. But let me just double check really quick. I'm just curious.
They are officially eliminated as last
they're
night.
officially,
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. They are officially eliminated. So they did set themselves up like a little less than a week ago when they still had an opportunity with the rotation, thinking these games would matter. And it doesn't matter to them anymore. They're officially eliminated. So, but again, you got a guy in Sandy Alcantara that was a hot topic during the trade deadline that is pitching against us now, and he's been really damn good since the All-Star break. You got Yuri Perez, another good young arm that is really good, and you got Eric Cabrera that we've been linked to for 3 years with the New York Mets, facing against the Mets at the end of the season in Game 162. And Game 162, I couldn't even tell you who's pitching. No idea, because it's TBD. That's how bad the Mets pitching has been, and that's how in flux the Mets rotation has been, that we don't know who's pitching in Game 162. We know who's pitching tomorrow. It's Clay Holmes. So 162, can it be all hands on deck scenario? I think if it's a must-win game, and this is a situation, Chris, and it leads right to today's game, the New York Mets need 162 not to matter. And how do you do that? I just gave you the scenarios. Win the next 2 games. You win the next 2 games. I already said it yesterday. With 4 games to go 2-2. They got to go 2-2, and the Reds have to go 3-0 to at least tie you. And again, can that happen? Sure, but it makes it puts a ton of pressure on them. We probably need to go 3-2 in our last 5 just to make it a interesting situation. But win the first 2 games of the series, and you're probably not going to have to worry in Game 162, and that's a best case scenario for the Mets, Chris.
I don't even want to think about tomorrow right now. Like, I don't even want to think about tomorrow. I mean, this lineup has such a huge task at hand in beating Sandy, who has not gone, as I mentioned in the post game last night, he has not gone less than 6 innings in any start since August 9th. He's gone 6 innings or greater since August 9th. And that's a good chunk of this season at this point. Yeah, the overall numbers are inflated, but we all know the type of pitcher that he's been as of recent for the Miami Marlins, and he's been really damn good, especially in that start at Citi Field against this very Mets lineup. So I want to worry about tonight. I think today is a must win. Every game is a must win. Like, that's not even a thing anymore, right? Every game is a must win. I do think the Brewers are going to have to take at least 1 from the Reds to secure that first seed in the NL over the Phillies, right? So hopefully the Brewers at least can take 1 in that series before they start sitting their guys and resting, some of their guys and pulling some guys before they should be pulled type scenario. So this game is very, very important because it takes the pressure away also from games 2 and 3 if you pull this one out, and it makes, this team, I would have to imagine, play a little bit looser. But I just think that this lineup is so interesting. I like most of it. I will say I like most of it. Don't like Cedric Mullins in center field. I'll say that. First and foremost, I know that Cedric Mullins is 4 for 9 with 2 home runs in his career against Sandy. I understand that, right? I just looked it up on StatMuse as well. I get it. I could care less. I could care less. I'm not playing career patterns here when this series means everything for this season. I'm playing the guy that has come up from the injured list, has made an impact greatly on both sides of the ball in Tyrone Taylor. And even the broadcast in the Chicago Cubs series, after, I think during game 2, actually, because that's when he got elevated, was saying there has to be no way that another guy patrols center field for the rest of the season for the New York Mets. And guess what the Mets do? Oh, they love the career numbers. The career numbers are definitely going to translate to tonight. They very may well, right? They very may well. And that's not out of the realm of possibility. But I like to play the numbers by what has this guy done for this team, for us as a fan base and a manager as of recent, and putting on this uniform rather than what this guy has done in the rest of his career against a pitcher, right? In 9 at-bats. I could care less that he's 4 for 9. This is a stupid decision. This is a stupid decision, having Mullins out there. That's dumb. But what I will say, this was a very hot topic last night on the post-game stream with Nick and myself, talking about if the Mets would deploy a dual catcher lineup with one of these guys as the DH. And I think that the lineup has a mistake here because Alvarez is the DH. He is not the catcher tonight. He is DHing for this team. No, I mean, listen, maybe that's a good sign. Maybe when we make a lineup mistake and typo, maybe we win the game. So hopefully the superstition comes to light here. But Mullins is the only thing that I don't like about this lineup. Luis Torrens catching, what have we said all season long, right? The bottom of the lineup guys should not matter. Now, in the case of Cedric Mullins, it's different because, theoretically, Cedric Mullins should not matter in a lineup that is producing. But now you have 2 guys in the bottom 2 of your lineup in Mullins and Torrens that I don't trust their bats, right? I don't trust Mullins and Torrens to get on base consistently to flip the lineup over. If you have one of these guys in the lineup, sure, you add both in, that's a problem. So I would love this lineup with Torrens playing defense and giving that defensive versatility, throwing runners out and being that, just strong catcher behind the plate in the tandem with a young pitcher and Brandon Sproat. And I think that's the only reason that Torrens is in this lineup, by the way, is because I think that Mendoza and this front office trust in Luis Torrens to work as a battery unit with the young pitchers, whether it's Tong, Sproat, or McClain. That's the reason why I think that he's in there. But Alvarez DHing, of course, that's a no-brainer as well because his bat has been light years better than Mark Vientos, right? He has the home run power that Starling Marte doesn't have. And so that makes a ton of sense to me to put Alvarez as the DH. I just can't wrap my mind around this Cedric Mullins decision. You get worse in every facet of the game. You already have a weak arm in left field with Brandon Nimmo. You don't cover as much ground, although Cedric Mullins does cover a lot of ground. He does not cover as much ground as Tyrone Taylor. And you get worse with the bat. Tyrone Taylor's bat has been pretty decent over the past couple of outings for him ever since getting elevated from the IL. And Cedric Mullins has done nothing with the bat for the New York Mets. It's unfathomable to have Cedric Mullins in this lineup. I will say that until he goes, 2 for 4 with 2 home runs tonight, and then I'll eat my words. But this is a brain fart on the part of Carlos Mendoza with Mullins in this lineup, and I'll just say that. And you know what? Vientos benched. I don't care about Vientos being benched. He's also been pretty bad. He swung a decent bat yesterday. He got unlucky on a couple of balls. He could have had 2 hits, right? If the defense didn't make great plays, left field, shortstop, whatever. I don't care about that. All in all, defensively and offensively, he's been bad. I love everything about this lineup outside of Cedric Mullins. That's my take, Rob.
Yeah, when it comes to Mullins, I can care less about the bottom of the order and the bat. I don't care about that. I don't. I know. I just don't like the defense. That's it. Like we seen the impact Tyrone Taylor makes right away when he came back into the lineup defensively, throwing the runner out at home. Mullins wouldn't have made that throw. Nimmo wouldn't have made that throw. Probably even Juan Soto would have never made that throw if that was hit to him. Tyrone Taylor is a difference maker in center field, and that is something that I'd rather have the better defensive player than worrying about a bottom of the order bat. And you know what? It just shows you that the matchup numbers make no sense because you got your both catchers in the lineup. And I do apologize. Francisco Alvarez is DHing and Luis Torrens is catching. I'm sorry I put catchers both times. But if you're so focused on offense, having your two catchers on the roster in your lineup, which is a huge risk. Make no mistake about it. And I have no problem with Mendoza doing that because you got to score runs here. Nobody believes, and I said it again yesterday, the Mets are not winning a 2-1 ball game. The Mets are not going to win a 3-2 ball game. They're not going to play. There's going to be runs scored in this game. It's either going to be only against the Marlins or the Marlins and the Mets. The Mets are going to score runs against Sandy Alcantara somehow, some way, and it's going to be a high-scoring game. The Mets can't win low-scoring games. It's just a fact. I would be shocked if we're talking tomorrow or in the post game that they won 2-1. I just don't feel that. So why not solidify your defense where you can the most? You put Torrens behind the plate because of his defense, because this is a very speedy, run-friendly team in the Marlins. You have to put Luis Torrens behind the plate, but you also need Alvarez's bat. So if you're telling me you need offense with putting Torrens and Alvarez in the lineup, Mullins should not be playing. He shouldn't. Because that 4 for 9 is irrelevant because it's not Cedric Mullins that we know him right now. And again, maybe he'll shut us both up. Maybe he'll shut all of us up. And, he'll go 2 for 3, couple of RBIs. Maybe he'll have the best game he had as a New York Met. I mean, we've seen crazier things. But is anybody counting on that? We all know what's going to happen. He's going to come up with runners on, and he's not going to do the job. And we all know what's going to happen. It feels that way. With the way the lineup looks right now, I like the fact that Vientos is not in the lineup. Vientos has had 1 month all season combined where he's looked like a good offensive player. You can't trust that right now, unfortunately. You just can't. You got to go with the vet. You got to go with Brett Beatty because he's been better defensively and he swings a damn good bat. That 3-run homer yesterday was huge for the New York Mets. And I trust Brett Beatty so much more defensively and at the plate at this moment. You can't play games with Vientos and hope he gets hot. You don't have time for that. You don't have time for that. Maybe if you're going to get a lefty on the mound in the postseason, maybe you want to give him a chance with that. Maybe. That's a big maybe. But I think a big reason why the Mets had issues in game 2 against the Cubs was because Brett Beatty wasn't in a lineup because Vientos was in a lineup over Beatty because of a lefty, even though Imanago is probably better than Boyd when it comes to a lefty talent, yet Beatty was in the lineup last night. So I don't understand why the New York Mets or Mendoza and Stearns or whoever collectively puts these lineups together as a unit use matchups and numbers sometimes and then go by the gut. Because the Francisco Alvarez, Luis Torrens, isn't that more of a gut feeling than actual common sense? Because there is no analytics that is going to tell you on a piece of paper or on a computer that putting both your catchers in the lineup is a good idea. Because the last thing you need, God forbid, if Francisco Alvarez gets hurt or you have to pinch hit or a pinch run or something, or whatever it might be, something to lose your DH. If you have in a scenario where you might lose your DH in whatever scenario, you also lose a catcher as well. So anything goes wrong with a catcher, you're in trouble. You're going to have Jeff McNeil behind the plate or somebody else that hasn't catched since college. So this is a huge risk. I'm okay with it. But you can't use matchups when there's no analytics that tells you that it's smart to put Alvarez and Torrens in the lineup at the same time when you have no third catcher. It's just how it goes. So I don't understand the logic. And this is why I hate teams using analytics for day-to-day lineups. I can't stand it. I can't stand it. You got to go with the trusted guys in your lineup for specific reasons when it comes to what have they done for me lately. That has to be the case. Mullins has, been a spectator on the base paths. That probably cost us the game against Washington. He's not very good defense. I mean, he can get to balls defensively, but he's not better than Tyrone Taylor. He has no arm. So you're looking at 3 guys in the outfield that don't have a very good arm with a speedy team. And the whole reason why you have Torrens behind the plate is because to lock down the running game of a speedy Marlins team. So if you're going to worry about that behind the plate, what do you think is going to happen on a base hit when a guy's on second for the Marlins? Who's throwing these guys out? So the logic doesn't make sense. And it doesn't have to always do with something about the offense. Because I truly believe if 1 through 7 ain't getting a job done, if you're going to expect 8 through 9 to get it done, because that's the first thing you know, Chris, on the post game, if it happens that Mullins and Torrens leaves a ton of men on base, why? Everybody's going to blame them. But who should be really to blame? The top 7. Because those are the guys that need the drive and the runs. Because if Mullins and Torrens are up in big spots with runners on base, that means the guys before them did not come through. And that's what you have to worry about. Is this team going to be Jekyll and Hyde again? Because what they did in game 1 against the Cubs was supposed to be a momentum shifter, and they came back in game 2 like they never played baseball before. So I don't even care what happened yesterday because I don't think it matters at all. I don't care they scored 8 runs. I really don't. Because it doesn't matter day by day with this team. This team could look like a juggernaut one day and the next day look like one of the worst teams in baseball, Chris. So I don't have confidence level. I don't have no confidence that they're going to prove to me that they're going to show me offensively what they did yesterday. I think it would be a big shock if I see another big crooked number. And whoever's on the mound with Alcantara, obviously, but I don't think it matters. I just think this team is so inconsistent. There's nothing to trust with this team. Like, who do you trust? Lindor getting hot right now? Maybe. Because Soto has looked bad the last 2 nights with the bat. He's just been not good the last 2 nights. And it's been Nimmo, it's been Alonso, it's been Lindor, Beatty, and obviously Alvarez in that series. So I just don't know at this point. They just got to find a way to win, and I don't care how they do it. If Sproat pitches a gem, great. If the lineup scores 10 runs, great. But I don't know if you agree with me, Chris. I think the only way the Mets win is in a high-scoring game. Because if it's a low-scoring game, I don't think the Mets have a chance, to be honest.
Yeah, I would kind of agree with that as well. I mean, the closer this ball game is, the more uneasy I get about it. And I do think that this offense has to continue to bear the weight of, the pitching on its shoulders. And that's just how it's been for the last couple of weeks, right? That's nothing new. And it's impossible for us to sit here and talk about this team and actually predict what they're going to do, because Nick and I were talking about it last night. It's like, what version of the Mets show up in Miami? You know what I mean? Like, you would like to think that this team, as much of a roller coaster as it's been this entire season, that they understand what's at stake and they understand that they're the better team. But we've also said that in past series against, the Nationals and whoever else, the Pirates, when we went all the way back in Pittsburgh. Those are series that you look back on and are like, okay, well, maybe this team doesn't really think that, or, take that mentality into these types of series. And, I will say, though, that the pitching does have to show something, because we can say as much as we want and come up here and say as much as we want, that this offense has to score 8, 9, 10 runs. That's just not sustainable, for all 3 games. The pitching is going to have to figure this out, at least in one of these games, to secure a baseball game, right? Whether it's the starters or whether it's the bullpen collectively. And the bullpen actually looked pretty good, I will say, in this Cubs series. Like, I was impressed with them, especially in games 1 and 3. So, we can say that we believe, and you got to believe in this, that, and the other. I think the objective statement here is that maybe we don't believe. Maybe we're just waiting to see what this team truly is made of when their backs are against the wall and they need to take care of business. Because this is not a situation where they're waiting for outside help. They have an opportunity, as you mentioned earlier in this stream, to control their own destiny.
Yep.
And take all 3 games and clinch a postseason spot. Is anybody confident in the chat or you or I about them sweeping this series? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Because the data that we have to go off of, that we've seen all season long, especially since June, right? The beginning of June, and also the past couple of weeks, states that we shouldn't be. And so for me, I'm even keel. I'm 50-50. I'm neutral. This team will either do it or they won't. And it shouldn't surprise us either way because they have the talent to go ahead and get into the playoffs, but they also have played very lackadaisical to make me unsurprised that they are not making the playoffs. So either way, I do think that, we can save the offseason discussion. I don't want to overtake that this stream, and we've done it in the past. And, there are going to be changes in the offseason, but I just do think that we as a collective unit, the Mets have to see all 3 facets of the game coincide. And that's just something that I can't be confident in because we haven't seen it for basically all season. In the beginning of the parts of the season, it was, okay, pitching is great, bullpen's great. Let me see the offense come around because we're winning games 3-1, 2-1, and this is not sustainable, right? And then somewhere in the middle of the season, it completely flipped. Offense is getting the job done. Pitching is kind of fading from the starting rotation, and the bullpen is winning this team games. And so it's just like we haven't really seen all 3 facets of the Mets click just yet. But going up against 3 solid pitchers on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, I just hope that all 3 facets of the game are going to show up, Rob. And it starts today. I don't care about Clay Holmes starting tomorrow. We'll worry about tomorrow when we get there. But Brandon Sproat, being as young as he is, as few of starts at the major league level as he has right now, it's do or die time. And this offense has to put up runs. Unfortunately, the offense is in a situation where they have to play saviors in this series, right? Especially behind such a young pitcher. Now, you hope that Brandon Sproat and the bullpen figure it out and they keep it going. But the offense, that's why I do think, right? I know that you said you don't care what Cedric Mullins does in the 8 spot, but that's why I do care what he does in the 8 spot. That's why I do care that we have Luis Torrens in the 9 spot, is that, yes, we know that this offense should be driven by 1 through 7. That's a factual statement. But if we are asking for this offense to get this team into the playoffs and really carry the pitching, I think it's going to take each one of these 9 guys. And if you're telling me which lineup I'm more confident in going into a series, Tyrone Taylor over Cedric Mullins or vice versa, it's going to be the first option. Now, there could be some things where Tyrone Taylor felt some discomfort, some cramps or whatever, and he's out, and we just don't know, right? We don't know about that. And that's certainly plausible. But I look at this and I'm worried. I'm worried about the production level of the bottom of the lineup to try to flip it over to the top of the lineup, and that's just what it is right now. And there is a lot of pressure, as Thor is saying in the chat here, on Brandon Sproat. No fault of his own if he goes out there and doesn't do well. I'm not saying he's not going to do well, but if he doesn't do well, again, circling back to this point, we cannot blame these young pitchers for the failures of such a high stakes part of the season being brought in here to try to keep this rotation afloat.
Yeah, you know what? The problem with this team all season, and when it comes to just look at the last couple of games coming into today, is the fact that there is no in between with this team. They can't play a good game. They either play a great game or a really bad game. There's no in between. If they played good games, they might have won a couple more games down the stretch instead of worrying about these last 3 games. And that's the problem. And it goes with the pitching. It goes with the offense. The offense scores 10 runs and then they score 2 runs the next day. It's a problem. But my biggest concern is I don't trust the starting pitching. The bullpen has stepped up over the last, I would say, week or so. They've stepped up. The guys that half of us wanted off the team have stepped up. Huascar Braza been huge for this team. Ryan Stanek has been huge for this team. Couple of trade additions. Gregory Soto, Tyler Rogers, even Helsley has looked better. And these guys are starting to looks like they're starting to get it together. And you can't, again, You can't keep on having pitchers leave. You know what? Nolan McLean yesterday, and I'm going to say it. I don't care if anybody else doesn't say it. If anybody believed that was a good start yesterday, you're nuts. That game shouldn't have been that close, and McLean allowed it to be. It was one batter. I understand that. But you got when you are the guy, you got to be better. You got to make that game a no contest. And I'm sorry. I'm really sorry. He got his pitch count up, which was we needed him to go 6-7 innings in that game yesterday. I know the bullpen was solid, but we know how fragile our bullpen is. We know how fragile it is. He needed to be a little bit better yesterday. I'm not saying that he did. The 11 strikeouts were awesome, career high. That's awesome. But you can't allow. This is a guy in Seiya Suzuki that hasn't hit a home run since what? August? Early August, they said? I mean, come on. He had 2 home runs yesterday. And you left him cookies over the plate. I'm sorry. Like, everybody, like, I couldn't believe the way people were talking about Nolan McLean yesterday. Like, he threw 8 innings of 2-run ball. He allowed it to be a close game, and he still had to get 4 2/3. 4 innings of outs to win. And that game was, and the Mets weren't scoring again, and it was still 8-5. And I'm like, Jesus Christ, we put in runners on base, and I don't trust that. You know, the bullpen has looked better, but nobody's really in the circle of trust to the point where we're confident in saying, oh, we trust this. It's got to be better with the starters. And I don't know if they can be better. I'm sorry. It's just not good. It's just way too scary. And I know people in the comments are saying, oh, you know, I'm wrong. Pay attention, guys. It was basically a 6-0 game, and then it was an 8-2 game. All right. It was 8-5 in the 6th inning when he got taken out. I'm sorry. It's way too many innings to give a bullpen. Don't call this guy an ace and he's going to give you 5 1/3. I'm sorry. I know a lot of people are not going to agree with me, but this is the problem with Met fans. I am sick and tired of putting people on a pedestal. He was lights out for the first 4 innings, 5 innings, but you can't allow that to happen. You can't. I'm sorry. You just cannot do it. Because it allowed the Cubs, because you heard the Cubs fans yesterday, they started to get on their feet, cheering. They're already in the playoffs. They're on their feet, cheering on a 3-2 count with PCA up, cheering like it's game 1 of the World Series. Like, you can't allow that fan base to get back on their feet and get back into the game. That can't happen. That was if we would have lost that game yesterday, you could have pointed at Nolan McLean giving up those home runs and making it closer than it should have been. Because the bullpen didn't get up a run yesterday. I'm sorry. I love Nolan McLean. He's our only goddamn hope of an ace. So that's why everybody's a little bit, protective of him. And I get it. But I'm going to tell you guys the truth. There is nobody that felt comfortable after he gave up that 3-run bomb to Seiya Suzuki. Nobody. Because his pitch count was up. Everybody's like, oh my God, this guy is not going to go deeper into this game. And how are we going to finish this game? It can't happen. I'm sorry. Yeah, mistakes happen. But you know what? When your organization puts these guys in a position that they shouldn't have been in the first place, don't call him an ace and then all of a sudden try to protect them. And I know Chris is going to disagree with me because I know this because I know we talked about it prior to the stream. Right? That's why I brought up the question, because I knew I was going to bring it up and I'm going to get killed. I know that. Just like I got killed with the starting rotation in the beginning of the year that I didn't trust. All right. I think I won that battle. I don't know if I'm going to win this battle. I'm probably not. But I feel like we act like he pitched better than he actually did. The 11 strikeouts were awesome. He pitched a great 5 innings, but you got to finish the job. That game lost yesterday would have been majority on Nolan McLean because you allowed that game to get closer than it was. It was an 8-2 ball game. You cannot have that happen. And I know it was a mistake, but you know what? When you're quote unquote put in this situation as your ace now, and people love to put that title on a pitcher, because especially Met fans, they have to proclaim an ace. You got to be better than that. And Chris, I know you're going to hate it. I know you're going to kill me because I know everybody in the comments are killing me already. But that's the way I felt yesterday. I wasn't extremely happy because I was comfortable through 5 innings. I was like, damn. I'm like, this is going to be a nice game. I can go to bed early.
Yeah. It was really it was really the last home run, because again, you get up 6-0 and then you give up 2 solo home runs, and still all is okay because you're sporting a 4-run lead, and mistakes happen. Like, let's be honest, mistakes happen. And I think everyone's expecting, or not, maybe not everybody, but a lot of people are expecting, with how bad this rotation has been, for Nolan McLean to be perfect. And that's not, is unfortunately, that's very unrealistic and very tough expectations, right? But that's what comes with the territory of being a New York Met, especially when the rest of the rotation is faltering and you've been doing so well up until that point. So I do think that there's that pitch for sure. The 3-run home run, definitely, I would have to imagine he would have liked to take back. The solo home runs don't bother me much, although when you look at it on a grand level, when you see 3 home runs against you, that is tough. That's tough to see. But the solo home runs are whatever. I know Seiya Suzuki, that you just said, didn't have a home run since whatever time it was. But I think that he fizzled out for sure a little bit earlier than we would all have hoped. But I don't think that just because he gave up the 5 earned runs, that's going to make me look past that outing being good, quote unquote. You know what I mean? But I do hear you with the overall numbers. When you see 5 1/3, 5 earned runs, you're like, scratch your head. I'm like, that's not a good start. Like, that can't be a good start. I just think that with what I saw all the way up until that 6th inning, he was kind of cruising. Let's be honest. He didn't really have strenuous innings. He gave up 2 solo shots. Okay, it is what it is, but he didn't really have strenuous innings. And I take a look at the pitch mix, the pitch arsenal, the pitch movement, and I'm like, this guy putting away 11 Cubs, that's impressive. That's the most strikeouts any pitcher a Mets pitcher this season has had, and I think the most since DeGrom, if I'm not mistaken. Like, that's no small feat for a rookie. And by the way, he does retain his rookie status, which is also good for
He didn't go
2026.
7.5.
Yeah, because he didn't go. Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I necessarily agree with you to the extent that you're saying that it was kind of a lackluster performance because of the 5 earned runs. I hear what you're saying, but for me, I look at how he started and I look at how he kept this team in the ball game for at least the first 5 innings, and I'm like, okay, he was cruising. He got himself into some trouble. I think he issued like 2 walks as well. So 2 walks isn't bad, I guess, right? Especially looking at some of the other Mets pitchers with the control issues. But yeah, man, I don't know. I still think that I liked what I saw from Nolan McLean. And I'm not saying that you're saying it doesn't give you no confidence in Nolan McLean
Oh,
moving forward,
no,
because
no.
I'm
By no
sure.
means
I
did I say
know.
that. Yeah.
I know,
Yeah.
I know. And I just want to get that out of the way, that Rob does not mean that when he says that, that was a subpar performance by Nolan McLean. But I just think that one mistake turned the entire outing for him in some people's view around. But I'm still counting that, the first half of that game for Nolan McLean all the way up until that last inning means something. And at that point, he was cruising. And I think that is also equally as important to also call out as well with that start.
Yeah, the only issue, and again, it's not the confidence level of McLean. I'm glad you brought that up because I think people think that I kind of, already hate the kid. I just don't. Like, it's the guy I have confidence in. If I need a big guy, I feel like that's the guy that's going to give it to me. But, a great start turned into a good start that could have turned into a disaster. That's the only thing that I got concerned about, because nobody was excited that he left the ball game. I mean, he had to. He looked gassed after 5 1/3. He looked gassed. Like, that's okay. Like, he came back on regular rest. They pushed him up to pitch in that game for a reason, to win us the ball game, and he technically gave us a chance to win the ball game. And that's all you can ask for nowadays with Mets starting pitching, because we don't get much of that. So he did the job that he needed to do. He left with a lead. That's something that a lot of our pitchers don't give us. So that's something within itself. But when you got a great start going, and it could have been a ho hum victory, it turned into a 3-run ball game, and it was only the 6th inning, and you still got to get how many more? You still had to get 11 more outs to end the ball game. And we all know, we're like, oh God, who's going to come in the ball game? Nobody really knew. We got some Ryan Snyder, we got some, Rogers, Raley, all that stuff. But it wasn't as I was expecting a little bit more. again, I am a big proponent on a little bit of getting more innings from your starter. I think that, when people go crazy about 5 1/3 and 5 runs, I don't care about the final stat line. I know how I felt. I didn't look at the stat line after the game and like, oh, that wasn't a good start. In the game, there is nobody you should not have said, and most people probably did. Wow, Nolan McLean had a really good start. He had a great start. He started great. He didn't finish. He finished lackluster. A great start turned into a good start. It's not that the confidence level, I have a ton of confidence in him. I think the next time out, he can go 7 innings and give up 3 runs or less. That's how much confidence I have in him. But that's the thing I was talking about during the game, not after the game. I fell asleep. I went to work, came home, looked at the stat line. I'm like, oh, that was not a good start because it looks bad. But I tell you right now, I know his stat line, but I wasn't looking at it and then changing my opinion on the start. During the game, and right when the game is over, and I'm like, you know what? Because I said what everybody else was saying, Chris. I was like, damn, he was damn good. 11 strikeouts. I'm like, but then you dive deeper into it. How did you feel in that moment in the 6th inning when you had to get 11 more outs to win a ball game and you're only up by 3? Like that's the feeling that I wanted people to go back to. Not after the game and right now in a pregame. But again, we got the win. He left with a lead. That's all you can ask for starting pitchers for the New York Mets now. He did his job. Now we hope Brandon Sproat does the job, and he's got to go one up with Sandy Alcantara because I think that's the only way we have a chance in this game.
And I'm not trying to discredit you for your take at all because it makes complete sense to me, right? I mean, if Brett Baty doesn't hit that home run that he did earlier in the game, the entire complexion of that game changes, all things consistent. So you're absolutely 100% correct in that when you are unfortunately entrusted to be the quote unquote ace of a rotation that's struggling no less, you cannot afford to have that kind of mistake, especially when the bullpen's been as taxed as it has been. So I definitely hear what you're saying as well. And I just want to make that point known as well. And it's going to be the same thing where today behind Brandon Sproat, I just hope that this offense has that kind of firepower and offensive output to put behind Brandon Sproat and give him that confidence to see and to say, hey, listen, I don't need to be perfect, right? Because I'm sure that's the way that Nolan McLean at a certain point was attacking that game was that I don't need to be perfect now. I have a large lead and I can pitch to contact. And unfortunately, that just happened a little bit too much and maybe he got a little bit too comfortable and that's what resulted in the 8-5 game at that time. I think that these pitchers, especially the starters, if they're cruising, because we haven't seen a starter cruise like that for a good while, you can't get complacent. No matter what point of the ball game it is, you cannot get complacent. And I think that complacency, I'm not saying that it did, but it could have been a factor, in the ball game yesterday. But it just almost seems like us Mets fans, when there's a lead, it's like, no big enough lead makes it seem too safe for this team right here in 2025. And so offense come through. Brandon Sproat, I'm hoping he can give us 5 competent innings. It's been kind of a little bit of a mixed bag for his first couple of starts in his Mets career. How many pitches he's thrown, right? I think the last 2 outings have been around 70 to 75 pitches, somewhere in that ballpark. And then his first start in Cincinnati was 88 pitches. So we'll see just how far Mendoza decides to push him today. But I just don't think that none of this team can get complacent. Even this offense, with the way that the pitching is going, even if you get up with 6 runs against Sandy, that's not enough. Keep piling on. And I just do not want to see this offense, because we've seen it time and time and time and time again, let their feet off of the gas pedal. That cannot happen at all.
Yeah, I 100% agree with you. And you know what? The key to this game, I think, is the first 2 innings. Because what do we always talk about with really damn good pitchers or great pitchers? And Sandy Alcantara is one of them. You got to get to them early. If you don't get to them early, they get into a groove and they'll shut down the next 10 to 15 batters. Like, that's what these really good pitchers do. You got to get to them early. You got to jump on him early because he might be a little bit off with his pitches, and that's when you have an opportunity to get to him. Because once he gets in the groove and he's starting to feel confident on the mound, it's nearly basically game over. Because again, Chris talked about it earlier in the stream. All this kid does is, well, he's not a kid anymore, but all this guy does is go 6 innings. Imagine that, Mets fans. A pitcher who actually goes 6 innings consistently. I know we don't know what that is, and Met fans seem to not care about length until it actually matters, but it does. And this is a guy that will give you 6 innings. Even if he's not pitching great, he's going to provide 6 innings for this team. So their manager knows going in, he's got to get his bullpen to get through 7, 8, and 9. That's a fact. That is something that the Mets are not confident in. Their manager is not confident in. Mendoza can't go in there planning, oh, Sproat's going to give me 6 innings. I only have to worry about the 7th, 8th, and 9th. I can assure you he's planning for the very worst and the very best case scenario, unfortunately, because this is what Mendoza had to manage basically the entire season and probably for the last 4 months. So what are we going to get from Brandon Sproat? I don't know. We know he has electric stuff. I think if he locates his fastball, I think he's going to be okay. If he's a little wild with his fastball, I think his secondary pitches are going to be too obvious. And we saw with Jonah Tong, when you didn't locate your fastball and you had no control over your fastball and you didn't have confidence in your third pitch, you were throwing your changeup and they were sitting on it. You can't allow that to happen against the Marlins. Now, again, this is a young team in the Marlins. So you're getting a young pitcher against a young team. Now, this is kind of a weird experienced young team because they've played a lot because the Marlins just play young kids. But I hope that Brandon Sproat takes advantage of their aggressiveness and maybe make them fish a little bit, but get ahead in the count. Get ahead in the count and dictate the at-bat. I think that's the only way you're gonna have a successful outing for Brandon Sproat. Chris, what do you want from Brandon Sproat? Like innings wise, like I mean, everybody wants 7 innings, no runs. You know, that would be great. But what is your, I guess, real expectation for Brandon Sproat tonight?
I'd like to give him the benefit of the doubt and say that 5 innings would be okay, but I think in this situation that's just not feasible. For me, an ideal start for Brandon Sproat would be something that he did. I think I forgot what team it was. It was either the Rangers or some other team that he started against. It was the perfect line, I think, especially with an offense that has been putting up runs. 6 innings, right? No matter how many pitches it takes to get there, within reason, of course. And 3 earned runs. This lineup is pesky, right? Like this is a lineup that we've seen time and time again. It doesn't have the biggest, I guess stardom. I guess you should say there's not many stars in this lineup for the Marlins, but they scratch and they claw and they put together runs, and that's just the name of the game for them. So I'm expecting them to put up runs, keep it close, keep it competitive while also providing length. 6 innings, 3 earned runs. The offense, I know, Sandy, as long as you can match whatever Brandon Sproat gives up, if the offense can match that over the course of the Sandy start, then I think that going into the Marlins bullpen with a close game should be a recipe for success for this team in the later innings. And at that point, they just have to produce and play sound and clean baseball, which has been a struggle for them. But that is the recipe to beat this Marlins team with Sandy on the mound today, is that they just need to, whatever Brandon Sproat gives up over the course of however many innings he throws, I'm not talking about 3 or 4 innings of competitive baseball for Brandon Sproat. I'm talking about 5 to 6 competitive innings. However many earned runs he gives up, the offense has to keep pace against Sandy, and that's just the bottom line. So I would say bottom line for me, if I had to give you one answer and one answer only, it'd be 6 innings of 3 earned run baseball.
Yeah, I'm almost on board. I'm going to say 6 runs. Three runs is kind of like I'd love that, but I think 6 innings, 4 runs. I think if the Mets don't score 5 runs in this ball game, I think they're in trouble regardless. So, I was just looking. I was just curious because I was wondering. I'm like, you know what? How is Brandon Sproat going to keep his pitch count down enough to get to 6 innings? Because they have been taking him out around 75, 85 pitches or so, somewhere in between there. I think he needs to go to 90 pitches. Obviously, if he looks gassed, you can't leave him out there, to die. But I was just looking at strikeout totals for lineups, and go figure, the Mets are 22nd. I mean, they actually been pretty good when it comes to strikeouts. But the Marlins are one of the best teams of not striking out, which is interesting. So they don't strike out. they're a pesky, like you said, they're a pesky team. They don't strike out much. They're one of the best teams with the lineups that don't strike out a lot. So they're
They're
going to put the ball
aggressive
in play.
though, in the same sentence. They're still aggressive,
Correct.
but maybe they don't strike out as much, right? So that's also another challenging thing to figure out and navigate as well for the Met staff.
Correct. And listen, if you strike out 8, great. That would be awesome. But again, when they're being aggressive, and again, be careful with first pitches because this team jumps on first pitch fastballs. They got to be careful with that because these are guys like Marcy is one of them. Edwards is one of them. These guys and Conine as well. These guys jump on first pitch fastballs. You got to be careful. You got to locate smartly. You want to get ahead in the count, but make sure that ball's off the plate. If they take you deep on an outside pitch, that was a good pitch on the plate, a good pitch on the outside corner, and he takes you to right field or left, it is what it is. You tip your cap, but don't throw a meatball over the plate. This team is aggressive, and you got to be careful with that. So, Chris, any final thoughts? 3 games left, up 1. Obviously, the Reds face the Brewers, who only need 1 game to solidify their number 1 seed, and the Diamondbacks, who are on basically life support right now, are playing the Padres. What are your final thoughts on the Mets in this series and the Reds and the Diamondbacks?
Yeah, I don't really care what happens outside. I know we're going to naturally be scoreboard watching, but as we said, this team controls its own destiny. Worry about what's in front of you. The Mets, as I mentioned, like, it's okay, Mets fans. Like, you don't have to give into this pressure of being this super positive, optimistic fan. It's okay if you are wary about this team and you're 50-50 on this team, because I think I could speak for both of us. We don't know what's going to happen with this team. We're not even expecting, like, do you expect a series win out of this team, Rob? Let me just ask you and reverse the question back to you. Do you expect to see, like, what is your realistic expectation for this team?
Well, because nobody expects it, I think they're going to actually win 2 out of 3 because
Okay.
nobody believes it.
And that's fine. But like, the thing is that, with the past history, with the way that this team has been playing up and down, like, it's okay not to expect it. Like, we all want it. Nobody's going to say, oh, we want the Mets to lose this series, right? And put themselves in the toughest possible scenario. It's just which version of this team that we've seen. And we've seen plenty of versions of this team in 2025. Which of those versions will show up in, Miami against the Marlins? If it is a better version of the Mets, it doesn't have to be the peak version of the Mets, but if it's a better version of the Mets, I think they do win this series and they're in the driver's seat. And hopefully they get some outside help, with the Brewers taking 1 against the Reds to put the Mets in the playoffs. But focus on the task at hand. Brandon Sproat, go out there. Hopefully he's doing something. He has some sort of regimen to calm these nerves that I'm sure that he's experiencing right now. Go out there, go get the job done. Offense has got to get, some early run support for him as well to be as comfortable as he can on that mound. And, hopefully we're talking about, whenever the next stream is, about a win for the New York Mets. And that's all I got to say. That's my final thoughts. Let's go Mets.
Listen, it's Citi Field South. It's Miami. We know we're going to have a ton of Met fans there. It's going to be like a home game for the New York Mets in this series. I know a ton of people that I've used to go to games with and travel with. They're all there, all of them. The group chat is blazing with photos right now and beer, of course. But listen, guys, it's Citi Field South. You're going to have the home field advantage away. This is an opportunity here for the Mets to surprise everybody. There's nobody that trusts this team to win 2 out of 3. I can guarantee you that. There might be 1 or 2, but that's normal. But the majority of the Mets fan base doesn't believe that they can win 2 out of 3 because the Marlins has hurt us before. But if you look at the poll, and I said, are the Mets going to make the playoffs? A lot of people said yes. I don't know what it was. It was 80-20 the last time I checked. And that was when we started. So I'm not sure if it's going to go to 50-50. But guess what? The fact is the Met fans are believing that the Mets are going to make the playoffs. Maybe it's because they think the Reds aren't good and the Diamondbacks aren't good, and they don't trust those teams either to win and be successful either. So it could be not much confidence with the Mets, but even less confidence in the Reds and the Diamondbacks to take control over a playoff spot. But either way, if the Mets win 2 out of 3, they're in. I truly believe that. I don't think the Reds are going to sweep the Brewers because, again, the Brewers need 1 game out of the next 3. They're going to play hard to get that number 1 seed. Even though they're going to have the bye regardless, they want home field advantage. If you ever see, obviously we know how Milwaukee is, the fan base. They're a passionate, loud fan base. Home field advantage for them is huge, I believe. And I think they're going to at least try to win one of the next 3 games. And that's going to be hard for Cincinnati because, again, 2 more games here, and it's over, guys. I'm telling you that right now. If I'm wrong, I'll be the first one to tell you, but I feel that way. So it comes down to Sproat and the ton of pressure that he's on tonight. There's no pressure on the Marlins at all. They become spoilers. If they lose, they go to South Beach. They hang out after the game, right? If the Mets lose, it's going to be a problem. You just hope the Cincinnati Reds lose, and that's where we are right now. So the Mets got a 1-game lead on the Reds. Destiny is in their own hands. Let's get the job done, guys. I want to thank you guys for watching the Amazing Mets pregame show right here on the channel and on X. Hit that like button, guys, before you go. Subscribe to the channel if you have not subscribed yet on either channel or both channels. Make sure you hit that subscribe button, guys. Chris, you doing a post game tonight? There you go. Post game tonight.
Wait, no. TBD,
Oh.
TBD.
But
I was just typing in the chat here. I was saying, when you're saying let's go Mets, I was doing the thumbs up. It is TBD. I really want to do a post game. I'm going to try my best to do it. I know that we got one in yesterday. I was really happy that we were able to. At this point of the season, like, we should be doing one, but again, weekend plans, life gets in the way. You know what it is. So I will be watching the game from start to finish. So I will let you all know if I can actually do a post game stream. Again, please go ahead and hit the notifications buttons. I think I've kind of fulfilled my promise on the TBDs, to be honest, with what Telly is saying in the chat here. Every time I say 50-50, I would say for the better part of the majority of the last couple of weeks, I always pretty much end up doing one. I can't guarantee one always, but again, I think that we are in line to do a couple over the next couple of days. So let's go Mets. That's what I'll say.
There you go. And if I'm up in time to go to work, I might just pop in for about 10-15 minutes if possible, but probably not. But you never know. We'll go crazy. If the Mets win, I probably would just be sleeping. But other than that, with that said, guys, thank you for tuning into the show. TBD on the post-game show, but it's probably like 90-10 for the post-game show. So let's go Mets, guys. Let's get that W. And we'll see you next time on the pregame show, guys. Have a good night. Let's go Mets.
Welcome to
7 train rumble, headed to the field. Orange and blue vibes, the energy revealed. Brooklyn to Queens, repping both hoods. Rob and CP, keep